Welcome to Speed Talk, a weekly discussion on speed and power development. This week, on episode 1, we're going to discuss the limiting factors that go into speed and athletic development. More specifically, the limiting factors within an athlete. So let's break it down. Commonly, before training, coaches run an analysis to evaluate an athlete based on the specific needs of the sport. With those numbers, then they create a sound program to meet those specific needs. Within those numbers, we find the limiting factors that play a huge role on athletes' development, potential, and success. There are 8 limiting factors within an athlete. The first, the anthropometric potential. Second, strength potential. Third, endurance potential. Fourth, flexibility potential. Fifth, mental potential. 6, mechanics potential. 7, the conditioning potential. And 8th and final one, the development level. Today we're going to discuss the anthropometric and the strength potential. The anthropometric potential, or commonly phrased body build, is your height, weight, BMI, body circumference, and skin fold. They have been labeled as critical determinants in deciding success in the sport. For example, someone who is 6'9" has an anthropometric potential to be a good basketball player. But with this build, they may not excel in sports such as gymnastics, diving, or wrestling. Now, how does this relate to speed? Typically, specific body types have less limitations depending on the distance run. Shorter runs require a good start and the ability to achieve and maintain max velocity. A shorter, more bulky and powerful build tends to do better in this model. On the other hand, longer runs require an additional endurance component. Longer, leaner muscular builds tend to do better in this model. Ultimately, this doesn't mean an athlete cannot be great in other models due to their anthropometric potential. Instead, they'll have more limitations in which they'll have to overcome. One of the ways they can overcome this is with their strength potential. The second limiting factor is the strength potential. Within strength potential, an athlete must produce high levels of strength or force in static, dynamic, and elastic situations. Static strength is the ability to produce force when stable or moving at low rates of flexion and extension. Dynamic strength is the ability to produce force when moving at high velocities. If you look at the graph, the body is able to produce 100% of max force at low speed. As the speed of the contraction increases, the body's ability to produce force significantly decreases. Although athletes have to live with this phenomenon, some have the ability to maintain strength levels to a greater degree as speed of movement increases. The relationship between dynamic strength and speed of contraction can be seen in the graph below. The active muscles contract and produce a shortening of the muscle fibers, which is concentric contraction. Furthermore, the production of dynamic strength becomes complicated when muscles are lengthening or under eccentric contraction. The complication arises because of the unique ability of the body to produce higher levels of force during eccentric contractions. If we look at the graph, it shows as the speed of eccentric muscular contraction increases, so does force production. Similar to the differences in force production between concentric and eccentric contractions, strength increases are not the same for all athletes. Genetically gifted athletes produce greater strength increment as the speed of the eccentric movement increases. Understanding these differences is critical because any dynamic action can be deemed difficult or effortless depending on the type of contraction involved. A great example of this in sprinting is on touchdown. The upper leg of an elite athlete moves at 600 degrees per minute. If the muscles required to produce this force are contracting concentrically, they are a big limiting factor on the movement. However, if the muscles are contracting eccentrically, this will become an easier task to manage. The third and final strength component is elastic strength. Elastic strength allows you to produce spring-like forces in a short amount of time. You can move quickly in high velocities, spending less time on the ground. For athletes to maximize their strength potential and limit this limiting factor, they must be gifted in all 3 areas: static, dynamic, and elastic strength. The best ways to train these are with dynamic overload, with weight room training, Olympic lifting, med ball action, and plyometrics.